Hey guys, what's up? This is New Icon, and a long time, right? But this video is kind of special. It's about a game that I just recently released called OUTCAST. This was a game that I wrote and created for the one-page game jam by the Hobby Dungeon on Instagram. It was originally written as a one-page set of rules. I kind of fucked up and wrote it on the front and back of a page, and then was later told it needed to be on a single page, so I fixed that, but I was still able to add more. OUTCAST is originally a project called Cathedral Spires. It was about a lone wanderer in a kind of hex crawl world exploration type of deal, but there would be combat encounters, and those combat encounters would be settled with, combat, like a skirmish. So OUTCAST is kind of new and old. It carried a lot of really old mechanics from other projects that I worked on, but after the game got released, a lot of people really liked it, and I thought, okay, well, there's still a lot of stuff that I wanted to implement into the game that I wasn't able to, so I basically turned around and turned it into a proper book, proper rule book, I guess. It is complete now, I think more so than the one-page version. You can still get the one-page version and play it for free, but this version is for purchase, and it's available on C-Pop Direct, which is the online retailer for Crush Pop Productions, and Wargame Vault. Okay, what I want to do in this video is I want to play the game. I want to run through some of the game so you guys kind of get a feel for it. Probably going to do like 1 or 2 encounters. It is a war game at heart, but the outside, if I can say that, the outside of the game kind of revolves around exploration and doing things that aren't combat related. So maybe we'll see that, maybe we won't. If not, I'll just go ahead and explain how that works. Yeah, let's get into it. I do want to, at some point, I have this idea of coming back to YouTube and kind of making it more like a proper thing. So what I want to do is maybe turn this into a series at some point. But this video here is just, it's mainly for all the people in the occult Facebook group. Anybody who's interested in what I do. This is just one of many type of projects that I work on. I have my hands in so many things. For those of you who've followed my YouTube for a long time, you'll know that Crush Pop Productions has been around for quite a while. We've branched out and now have the Monolith, which is Crush Pop's publishing arm. That's going on 9 years. We've got Corrugatio 9, a horror anthology coming out this Halloween. We've acquired a couple of imprints. Catastic Stationery is one of them, which focuses on a lot of cutesy stuff. I thought that plus the Secret Stairways imprints would be more viable and accessible to produce games or projects that I release that don't necessarily fit the Crush Pop aesthetic. A lot of you know that Crush Pop, the cult of C-Pop, is very like occult. Okay, let's dive into OUTCAST. We'll go through the steps of creating the world, creating your character and their backstory, and then we'll dive right into the game. So what you do to begin is you start by creating the game's world. So you can do this on your own, or you can roll. It's very narrative based, so if you don't want to do that, you can just skip right in and just like say create your character name and then just start playing the game. One of the ways to play the game that is very narrative based as well is on a hex grid. The game does include it. I'm planning on doing an update where I have these kind of like single sheets so that you can print it on like a proper full page. But the game encourages you to like name locations, name people, stuff like that, and there are tables for that too. Quickly show that to you. So towards the end of the book, you will find people and places. So it's a 3d6 roll, and you are going to basically, this is whenever you come up on random stuff and you just want to name it. There's something here for you if you just want to do it really quickly. Same thing here when you're creating your character, which I'll do. I'll do it randomly. So you take 2d6, and let's say we start off by creating the name of the world. So we get 8, and we get Vendia. So world name is Vendia. And now we will roll to determine the tribe that we were in. So you have your character name and then the tribe name. So we'll go with the character name first. I got a 9, and that's Rowan. So my name is Rowan. And I'm using this Artisan Guild miniature to represent my character. Just a heads up, this is a soul type of like wanderer game. It's literally you versus bands of enemies. And the tribe that I was outcast from, I got a 7, is Thunderhoof. So I was banished from Thunderhoof tribe. Now there is more detail within the confines of character creation. You know, like here it says some of the questions you might want to consider. You know, what events led to the outcast's exile? Why was the outcast ultimately cursed to wander alone? Where are they originally from? Just little things to flesh out the character and the world and setting that you essentially are creating. Okay, on to the game. So the game is actually played on, you can, like I said, you can use hex maps to determine like where you travel, to kind of flesh out the world, or you can just play without it, you know, just list the encounters in turn, you know. You play, combat encounters are taking place on a 12 by 12 inch battlefield, so 1 by 1 foot, or yeah. You also need a fate deck, which comes with the PDF or the game itself. The fate deck actually determines who activates during a battle. And there are 2 types of cards. There is the outcast, and each type comes in 3 types of art styles. And certain death, which is the enemy activation. Outcast is you. Aside from that, you can use a standard deck of poker cards. The red cards would be the enemy. The black cards would be the outcast, which is you. The fate deck comes with 18 cards, so you just print them out, cut them, and that's your deck. If at any time you need to reshuffle, go ahead and do so. But yeah. Okay, so the way we play is we play in a series of encounters. So the game goes on and on until you die. So you can essentially just play on forever so long as your character stays alive. And for the encounters, I mean, it is pretty detailed as to like what you're going to be rolling to determine. So you roll to determine the encounter. And it's going to be either a combat encounter or a non-combat encounter. And then those 2 also have rolls within themselves to determine things. So for the combat encounters, okay, sorry. So we'll just go ahead and I'll explain it this way. Each encounter, you're going to determine the location type, the encounter, and then if it's a combat encounter, additionally, you're going to determine the number of enemies and the number of terrain elements. So we'll do that. I'm gonna grab my 12 by 12 board now. This is a snazzy little one that I just made up. And these are really easy to make, just so you know. This is literally like a wooden frame you can get at a like arts and crafts store, and you know, glue, sand, that's it. Okay, so we'll go ahead and roll to determine the first encounter. And the very first thing you're going to do is roll to determine what type of location we're in. So we roll 2d6 and I get a 4. So look, encounter 1, we are in the mountains, which means that I am going to double the amount of terrain elements I roll for. Now, next I roll to determine the encounter, the actual encounter. Another 2d6 roll, and again I get a 4. This is an around town encounter, and this is cool because I get to explain what this is. This is not a combat encounter. This is actually a kind of like social, you know, wandering the town type of encounter. So in a town, you get to walk into a town and take in the sights. You can shop for items or weapons. You can gamble. You can accept a quest from someone at a tavern. You can hunt or fish. You can do any of the previous except a quest. Only one per this encounter and not currently on a quest. So quests are kind of specific. The book also has a section called Town Bulletin Boards, which lets you kind of generate a quest. You can only do that once per around town encounter. So let's say that we want to do that. Let's look at a town bulletin board. So let's determine where we are. So we will go ahead and roll 3d6 to determine where we are. And I got a 7, 8, 9. We are at Blackwater Crossing. So that's where this town is located. And now let's check out the town bulletin board. Okay, so this is done in a list. So you do this all in order. So we roll 1d6 to determine who offers the quest. And it's a 4, so the town mage is offering the quest. And next we roll 2d6 to determine the type of quest that it is. Got a 6. It's a contract. Kill a number of enemies. So next we roll to determine the reward. 1d6. Got a 5. It's going to pay out 15 rock. 15 rock is the currency in the game. So we got a contract. So now we look under contract. Each one of them has kind of more details on the quest itself. So we roll a d6 and we get a 5. We are looking for high-ranked criminals wanted for a very serious crime. And then we roll a d6 again to determine how many. And I got a 4, so we killed 10 enemies. So the way quests work is you have to follow the rules of the quest, and upon completion, you're granted that reward when you're not in an encounter. So for example, here it says to kill 10 enemies. Now what that means is on every combat encounter, I'm killing enemies, and I have to tally those up. And once I hit 10, it's considered that I've killed all the enemies that the mage has asked me to kill. I don't know why mage would do that, but hey, whatever. But you have other things like, for example, a city official begs you to put an end to slave trading in the area by freeing 15 slaves, which is also an objective in one of the encounters. Once you free 15, the quest is complete, and then it tells you how much the reward is. But yeah, so we did that. We took a look at the town bulletin boards. We can go and gamble now. We can go and hunt and fish. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to cut right to another encounter. So we're leaving the town and we're going to go somewhere else. And let's see where our travels take us next. I got a 6 and we are in the swamp. So now movement here is limited to 3 inches. And that's if we're running a combat encounter, which we'll check now. So 2d6, I got a 7, and I have been ambushed. So I will read out what an ambushed encounter looks like. You're ambushed by the enemy, catching you by surprise. All enemies gain a +1 to their attack rolls for the encounter. The objective here is to defeat the entire enemy. You may attempt to flee before the encounter. If you fail to roll, enemies gain a +2 instead. If you flee successfully on your next encounter, you suffer a -1 to your movement to a minimum of 1. And that's literally it. So we'll grab the board and I will get this thing set up. So the rules for combat encounters is pretty, you know, it's laid out pretty well for you. But what we're going to do now is, now that we know what the encounter is, we're going to determine, excuse me, there we go. We're going to determine the number of enemies that we're going to face. And we are going to face, oh, that's 1d6. We are going to face 2 more than your outcast. So we're going to face 3 enemies in total. And the number of terrain elements, 1 to 2 is 1 piece of terrain. So let's put that on the board. So explain this to you guys. So the terrain can literally get placed anywhere, and normally it should be fairly small because of the small footprint. And let's see, we'll use this one. We'll just go like right here, and our outcast gets placed on the very edge, and the enemy gets placed on the opposite side. So we're going to be placing 3 dudes that will be placed as such. Now, because of the small footprint and because the game is intended for solo play, there really isn't ranged combat. However, you know, you can easily house rule that. When you look at the rulebook, you'll notice that there is a lot that you can take and dissect and kind of like create what you want to experience with the game, just like pretty much all my projects. Yeah, okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to shuffle the Fate deck. And it's kind of cheesy, but the back of the cards, there's an extra page when you're printing these out that lets you put a back on it. So you just, you know, like put the sheets back in the printer and then run it again, and it gives you this snazzy little Outcast logo on the back. Okay, so deck is shuffled, and we know our encounter. The encounter is ambushed. They're gaining a +1 to all their attack rolls, and I'm not going to flee. I'm going to stay. But my objective here is just to kill everybody. Now, there are other things that happen too between encounters, like traveling merchants, which you might run across, and I'll get to that later on, as well as looting the dead. You can actually loot enemies. And I know I forgot to mention this. When you start the game, you start with 0 rock. So you're broke as fuck. You literally kicked out of your tribe, and you're broke as fuck wandering the world alone. Okay, so we alternate activations, so everything is set up. We're ready to go. Now we flip the first card to see who activates first. And it's always going to be the closest one to your outcast. We get red, certain death. So that is an enemy. And I'm going to say it's this guy here. So when the enemy is activated, you roll a d6, and on a d3, they have to move 4 inches towards your outcast. And if the move ends in base-to-base contact, then basically a fight breaks out. So he got a 4, so he's going to move 4 inches towards my character. I don't have a ruler on me right now, so I'm just kind of guesstimating the movement. Okay, so next, that's done. So now we flip again, and we got the outcast. So the outcast gets to activate, and when we activate, we get to move 4, and same thing. If we get into base-to-base, then a combat begins immediately. And I'm going to go balls out and just move towards this guy. I don't know if that's 4 inches or not, but we'll just say. Activation's done, so next, certain death, he's going to activate since he's the closest. He gets in, and he's in. Okay, so the way combat works is 1d6 for each of the combatants, and we get to apply any modifiers. So he's going to get a +1, the enemy will. And basically the highest score wins. Loser takes 1 point of damage. And enemies usually have 1 point of health unless the scenario says otherwise. And one thing I actually forgot to mention is that your character starts with 5 health. Okay. So we'll roll for the enemy. 4 + 1 is 5. We'll roll for my guy. I'll just take it. That's a 1. He deals 1 damage to me. So my dude's at 4. And he is going to suffer that. And if basically the the loser's going to get thrown back an inch, or 1d3 inches, I'm sorry. So he is going to get pushed back 2 inches. So he goes like that. And now we go to the next activation, certain death. He's just going to come in again, and we're going to attack again. He gets a +1, so he's got a 2. My guy goes, he's got a 2. It's a draw. So in the case of a draw, both sides don't take any damage, and they're both pushed back 1d3 inches. So he will go back 2 inches to where he was. He'll go back 1 inch. Okay, next activation, outcast. Let's try this again. He moves in, outcast rolls. Oh man. 4 to 1. He's going to take another point of damage and get pushed back. Next, he's going to follow up. He attacks. 2 + 1 is 3. My guy goes 3. Another draw. And we're right back to where we started. Okay, next activation goes to certain death. And once again, he's going to follow up again. Outcast. Gets a 4. Attacker gets a 3 + 1 is 4. Same thing. Oh, I messed up on the 1d3 pushback roll last turn. So that's going to be 2 inches. And that's going to be 2 inches. Okay. So this is turning into kind of a slugfest with the guys in the back watching. Now Outcast gets to go. I think I'm gonna move this way. Let's just see what happens. Okay, certain death. I think he's still the closest, so he'll move next. Certain death. He's gonna follow up. Okay. So attacker gets a 6/7. That's gonna be an automatic. So he's gonna take another wound, and he's gonna get pushed back. Oh, 1d3 inches. I'm sorry. Habit. 1, 2, 3, 2 inches. Okay. Next, Outcast. I'm going to say screw it and go up to this guy. Okay, Outcast rolls. 4. Target. Whoop. 2 plus 1 is 3, so he takes a hit and he is dead. That was pretty swift. Next activation, certain death. Big bad dude here is gonna move in. His attack is a 5 plus 1 is 6. Can I go 6? 6, draw, okay. So attacker gets pushed back 2 inches. Outcast 3 inches. Next activation is the Outcast. He'll move in again. I need a really good roll here. 5. Defender. 3 plus 1 is 4. He takes a hit and is killed. And next is certain death. He's gonna move up. And next, Outcast. He gets to move in. Hopefully this takes him out. Let's see. 4. 2 plus 1 is 3, and he is out. So that was looking pretty rough for the Outcast to begin with. But the cool thing is that once the encounter is finished, his health, like between encounters basically, he goes back up to his full health. So he'll be at 5 again when he starts his next encounter. So now I get to explain looting the dead. So once we're done, the encounter ends in victory for us, the Outcast. We get to roll a d6 for every enemy, and on a 4+, we get 1 rock. So we had 3 enemies, and I find 1 rock. Okay, so he's 1 rock richer. The other thing, like I mentioned before, was traveling merchants. So before I start the next encounter, right now I can roll to see if we come across a merchant. It's a 1d6 roll, and on a 4+, 6, we run into 1. So when this happens, there is a section in the book where you can find all the different things that you can purchase from a merchant. Things like steadfast boots, minor potion, major potion, mauler axe, sword of brutality, teleportation scroll, melee training, advanced melee training, god's elixir, like on and on. These are things you can buy and sell, actually. So when you come across a merchant, if you have stuff that you don't need anymore, you can sell it for its sell value. Everything has a cost and a sell value. So with that done, that's the encounter. We would go on to our third encounter. So I don't know if I'll necessarily play the third encounter, but I'll just kind of roll it to see what we come up with. 2d6, I get a 7, and we're still in the swamp. And next we roll to see what the encounter is, and we get a 6, death to the slave traders. This is a cool one. I'll explain the way this one works. I'm not going to necessarily play it, but okay. You find a traveling band of slave traders with a slave in their grip. You demand that they free the slave, but they instead laugh and draw their swords and attack you. The objective here is to defeat the entire enemy. Once the enemy is defeated, and before rolling for loot, the slave is freed, and you're paid 1d3 rock. That's basically it. There's another one that's pretty. It's like the slave traders encounter, only it kind of bumps it up a notch. It's the Moonlight Cultists. That one actually has a victim that follows you around as you're trying to like free them from a possible sacrifice. Yeah, that's pretty much that. So we would go through the encounter the same way we would set up. Shuffle your cards, set up the terrain, you roll to determine how many enemies, and then you roll to determine the terrain. Actually, let's do that. Let's see what that would give us. We roll a d6 to determine the enemies, and this would be a big one. 3 more than your outcast, so it would be 4 enemies. And then the terrain would be 3 pieces of terrain. So let's say we would set these up like this. Okay, and we'd have our outcast and the enemies. And there we go. That would be the start of the encounter. And you would just, you know, roll to determine who goes first, or flip after you shuffle the deck. You shuffle the deck every time a new combat encounter is generated. Okay, so that's Outcast in a nutshell. If you're interested in the game, definitely give it a look. It's on Wargame Vault and CPOP Direct in digital format, with the print version available on CPOP Direct. And it's another kind of like zine type of title that I've produced. I'm kind of like in love with that format. But yeah, this one, like I said, it doesn't really have a setting. That's kind of up to the player. The player kind of determines that as you progressively build the world through your encounters and experiences. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will hopefully catch you guys again soon. Thanks again. Goodbye.